Okay, let's try and unpack this. Imagine you're staring down thousands of feet up onto this vast red Australian desert,
Hmm.
and you see this giant, unmistakable figure carved right into the earth. That's the Marree Man.
Yeah. It's one of Australia's really enduring mysteries, isn't it? This massive geoglyph that, well, it just seemed to appear.
Exactly, relatively recently, kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah.
No clear creator, no obvious purpose, at least not at first glance.
It is truly enigmatic. I mean, discovered late 90s, and the sheer scale of it, plus the total anonymity, it just grabbed everyone's attention, sparked all this speculation.
Right. So our mission today, basically, is to dive deep into the source material you've got here, these excerpts from a 1998 document about the Marree Man, and really see what they tell us. What do we actually know? What are the big theories? And why does this huge figure still capture our imaginations, especially for people interested in the unexplained? Let's get into it.
Sounds good.
So first off, what are we even looking at? What is the Marree Man when you see it from up there?
Okay, so it's a geoglyph, which basically just means a huge design etched onto the ground.
Right.
And this one shows a stylized human figure. It looks like an Indigenous person, maybe with a headdress, some kind of feathered thing. And it looks like he's holding something. Could be a spear, maybe a woomera, like a spear thrower.
But when you say massive,
Yeah.
we're talking really massive, right?
Yeah.
That scale is part of the whole mystery.
Oh, absolutely. It's about 4 kilometers long, head to toe. That's what, 2.5 miles?
Wow.
Makes it one of the biggest geoglyphs anywhere in the world. And the lines making the figure, they're not thin. They're like 35 meters wide.
115 feet wide lines. How do you even make that show up from the air?
Well, the source explains it's done by scraping away the top layer, that reddish-brown desert surface.
Okay.
And that exposes the lighter stuff underneath, a lighter soil or substrate. That contrast is the key.
Ah, so it stands out.
Exactly. Makes it really dramatic when seen from a plane or a satellite. And its location, I mean, it's incredibly remote, South Australia.
Right, hardly anyone around.
Yeah, sparsely populated, minimal air traffic back then. So seeing it from the air was pretty much the only way it was going to be found. It became an instant landmark just because you could see it from above.
And the discovery itself, the source mentions sightings around 1998. How did people actually find it?
The document suggests it was probably spotted during aerial reconnaissance, survey flights, maybe explorers flying over that remote patch.
Whoa, what's that?
Pretty much. Early reports started filtering through locally among explorers, station owners, this huge, mysterious figure.
I can only imagine the reaction. Something that enormous just appearing overnight, seemingly.
Yeah, the fascination was instant and intense. The size, the mystery, the fact, it just sort of popped up without any warning. It baffled people. Anyone flying over or hearing about it just had to see it. That surprise element, the lack of any explanation for something so huge, that really drove the initial buzz.
And then I suppose the media jumped on it.
Oh, that was crucial. News outlets picked it up fast, and they often framed it as, an unexplained phenomenon.
The big mystery angle.
Exactly, emphasizing the size, the mystery, the anonymous creators. Then, maybe early 2000s, satellite images, like from NASA, became way more accessible.
Right, you could see it online.
Yeah, that imagery spread like wildfire online in news reports, and that just massively fueled the speculation. It went from a local puzzle to this, international enigma. Became a global talking point.
Okay, let's think about the nuts and bolts for a minute. Making something that big, that precise.
Yeah.
It must take in a huge amount of planning and just sheer effort, right? Not just a casual afternoon's work.
Oh, absolutely not. The source is clear. This implies serious planning, managing resources. I mean, the size, the precision needed so it looks right from miles up.
Yeah.
The document suggests they might have used aerial photos, maybe even early drones, to get the layout accurate, check it. Although it does also say, interestingly, that simple tools could have done the job for marking it out initially, stakes, ropes, that sort of thing, before shifting Earth.
And keeping those lines visible in that harsh desert, that's got to be tough. The source mentions specific techniques.
Yeah, durability is a big challenge out there. The source talks about a few possibilities for making those exposed lines last.
Like what?
Well, maybe layering materials, like a core of compacted soil or gravel for stability, maybe.
Okay.
Then coating it with finer sand mixed with binders. Think of them like desert glue.
Right.
Could be clay-based stuff, or even like cement compounds, resins maybe, something to harden the surface, resist erosion.
Uh-huh.
Source also mentions maybe using natural salts or minerals that could help make it reflective, or harden it even more, maybe using local rocks too, sandstone, limestone, that kind of thing.
So it's more than just scraping. There's some, like, engineering thinking involved to make it last.
Precisely. The document suggests subtle techniques like maybe building the lines up slightly or defining the edges with these hardened materials.
To fight erosion?
Exactly. Makes the detailed parts less likely to get blown away. It even raises the possibility that whoever made it knew they'd need to do, periodic maintenance.
And the shape itself, the source notes the proportions aren't quite human standard. They seem designed for being seen from way up high.
Yeah, that's a really fascinating point in the source. The proportions seem calibrated so it looks right from altitude.
How so?
Well, the head, for instance, is often mentioned as being like disproportionately large compared to the body.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of exaggeration helps it be recognizable from far away.
Yeah.
It's something you see in some ancient geoglyphs too, also meant to be seen from above. And the lighter material inside the lines, that really helps it pop against the darker desert.
Right.
And modern tools, GPS, satellite mapping software, they help confirm the scale, the features, proving it was designed to be viewed like that.
Okay, so massive engineered figure appears mysteriously, which leads us straight to trying to figure out when it appeared. What science has been used to try and date it?
Well, scientific dating is the obvious route, but it really depends on what materials are actually there.
Right.
If you find organic stuff, wood, charcoal, whatever, you could try radiocarbon dating.
Okay.
For inorganic things like rock or minerals, there are techniques like thermoluminescence or OSL, optically stimulated luminescence.
OSL, what's that?
It basically measures the last time tiny mineral grains saw sunlight or heat. It's like resetting their internal clock.
Huh, clever.
Yeah. Other methods like uranium series dating or isotopic analysis might work too if you find the right materials.
And what about just looking at the ground itself, the disturbance?
Oh, yeah. Analyzing the ground disturbance is key. Scientists look for changes in soil layers, how vegetation has grown back or been disrupted, and crucially, any signs of tool marks. But the source points out, for Marree Man, clear tool marks seem to be missing or hard to spot, which makes it tougher.
And can the way it was built tell us anything about its age?
It can give clues about the time period, yeah. Like, if there's evidence heavy machinery was used, that shouts modern origin, probably last few decades.
Makes sense.
The precision, the grading, any layering that all points to detailed planning.
Yeah.
You can also compare the methods to known historical construction techniques.
Okay.
And if they used, say, deliberately reflective materials, that might hint at an intention to signal something, which could narrow the time frame, maybe?
But the source is also pretty clear that the science hasn't cracked it, has it? There are limits.
That's the big challenge, yeah. And a huge reason the mystery hangs around. Dating methods can give fuzzy results. Environmental factors mess things up. Preservation might be poor.
Right.
Natural processes or even later human activity can disturb the site, obscure the original clues, and often you just don't have the specific materials you need for accurate dating. Plus, experts can argue about how to interpret the data they do get. It's just really hard to pin down a definite timeline. The source really flags these limitations as part of the ongoing puzzle.
So if science can't give a definite when or how, the theories start taking over, don't they? Is it definitely humans, or does the source leave other doors open?
The source leans very strongly towards human hands. The complexity, the precision. It's really hard to argue that's just wind or water erosion.
Seems unlikely.
Yeah. The geometric accuracy, the symmetry, the fact you could, in theory, alter it or fill it back in, those are hallmarks of deliberate human work.
Right.
And while specific tool marks might be scarce at Marree Man, the general evidence you'd expect from large earth-moving clear pathways, signs of excavation points to human activity. Plus, you compare it to known land art, crop circles, labyrinths worldwide, fits that pattern.
And what about the idea of it being a modern hoax, or maybe some kind of underground art project from the 90s?
Yeah.
How plausible does the source make that sound?
It presents it as quite plausible, actually. The techniques needed, maybe just simple surveying with stakes and ropes before clearing the topsoil, are definitely within human capability.
Sure.
And the secrecy, the planning, that would be essential for it to appear so suddenly and anonymously. It fits with that global trend of large-scale land art and even the crop circle buzz in the 90s.
What about the more conspiratorial angle? Covert project. Military government.
The source does mention that possibility. You know, theories linking it to secret military stuff, maybe government operations.
Like what? Coded messages?
Could be. Or testing surveillance tent, maybe, something like that. The source does note there's no direct evidence for this, but, you know, the visibility from the air, the remote spot, it feeds that kind of speculation.
And then there's that phrase about unknown origins.
Right. The source uses that striking comparison, the anonymity being like Bitcoin-like anonymity.
Huh.
That deliberate hiding of who did it, especially for something so massive, it really does spark curiosity. And sometimes gets linked to theories about, well, secret human groups, or even, in the more speculative ideas, maybe non-human involvement for reasons unknown.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. Beyond how it was made, the Marree Man isn't just dirt lines to a lot of people. It's got this artistic, cultural, symbolic meaning.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely seen as a form of land art. Part of that whole movement of changing the Earth on a massive scale.
Making a mark.
Yeah, leaving a huge mark, creating a story on the landscape. Some read it as commentary on, like, human communication over huge distances, or maybe our relationship with nature, dominating it even. And the fact it's made for viewers high up in the air. That pushes artistic boundaries.
And the symbolism. What could the figure itself represent?
That's wide open. So many interpretations. The source mentions possible links to an indigenous spirit being, maybe a mythic ancestor.
But no definite link.
Crucially, no. The source stresses that no specific connection to any particular indigenous group or story has been confirmed. Very important point.
Okay.
Other ideas. Symbolizing exploration, human cleverness, our tiny place in the vastness, or, yeah, some even see alien intervention in it.
Right.
Its isolation out there in the wilderness, that itself becomes symbolic, maybe about the human condition alone, or just the contrast of this huge human effort imposed on wild nature.
People often compare it to other big earthworks, right?
Yes.
Like Nazca lines.
Yes, frequently. It gets mentioned alongside the Nazca lines in Peru, the pyramids, the Easter Island statues.
Because they're all massive, lasting marks.
Exactly. But the source points out Marree Man is also distinct. Unlike those ancient sites, which often have clearer cultural or religious backgrounds, Marree Man's origins are unknown and recent. It kind of blends into the natural land while being obviously designed. And the links to modern tech theories, clandestine stuff, that sets it apart from purely historical sites. But yeah, the Nazca comparison is strong, big figure, geoglyph form.
Now, this is really crucial. The local and indigenous cultural perspectives. The force seems careful about this.
Vital, yes. And the source emphasizes sensitivity and respect here. Indigenous communities in Australia have incredibly deep connections to the land.
Right.
Their oral traditions, their art, passed down complex stories and knowledge. Dreamtime stories sometimes talk about encounters with unusual beings, maybe luminous objects.
Which some people now interpret differently.
Well, some modern observers look at those stories through a lens of possible unexplained phenomena, maybe what we now label UFOs.
So traditional stories might offer a kind of framework for understanding weird stuff in the region.
Exactly. The symbols in Indigenous art aren't just decoration, they're like a language. The source says they convey complex ideas, natural laws, spirit guides, cosmic stuff.
Wow.
Potentially including references to celestial events, maybe even otherworldly encounters. But the source is really strong on this. Be sensitive, follow cultural protocols, involve community elders who hold this knowledge.
Right. Don't sensationalize it.
Absolutely. Avoid misappropriating sacred stories or symbols. From Indigenous views, the land holds memory, sacred sites can be connection points, encounters might be ongoing spiritual things, and remember there's diversity between different communities and how they might see it.
Okay, now we get to the part that really fuels the mystery for a lot of people. The UFO connection. The source talks about unexplained aerial phenomena, UFOs, right there in the Marree region.
Yes, this is a big focus in the source material. It details persistent eyewitness accounts from that area, going back decades.
Who's saying things?
Residents, travelers, explorers, they report unusual lights, crafts moving silently, erratic flight paths, sudden disappearances, stuff that just doesn't match known aircraft.
And the descriptions are consistent.
Yeah, that's noted. Consistency in what people describe and where they see these things over a long time.
Any specific examples in the source?
It gives examples like farmers or station workers seeing strange craft late at night, and it recounts one specific incident. Explorers seeing a large, silent, disc-shaped object.
Whoa.
Hovering, apparently, with pulsating lights coming from inside. Then, they said, it shot straight up, incredibly fast, leaving a quick light trail.
And other weird stuff happening at the same time.
Yeah, often accompanying phenomena get mentioned, like electromagnetic disturbances.
Like what?
Radios cutting out, phones dying, compasses going haywire when these objects are supposedly nearby, which suggests, maybe some exotic tech involved, or at least a physical link between the sighting and EM interference.
So does the source propose a direct link between these UFO sightings and the Marree Man itself?
Well, some theorists do, yes. They suggest the timelines overlap unusual aerial activity happening around the time the Marree Man was revealed, or maybe later when people were studying it or doing maintenance.
So are the sightings just coincidence or...
That's the question the theories raise. Are they accidental or deliberate? Could the sightings be signals, tests related to the geoglyph? The idea gets floated that the Marree Man itself could be some kind of marker or a beacon, maybe even a landing guide for whoever is flying these things, human or otherwise. Or sightings might just happen when people are out there studying it with planes or drones.
Okay, pushing even further into the strange, the source mentions local legends about cryptids, mysterious creatures in the area. How does that fit in?
Yeah, the source explores a potential connection between those cryptid stories and the whole alien encounter idea.
How?
It suggests that these local legends, which often describe weird shapes, odd movements, maybe lights associated with creatures, they might act as sort of cultural templates.
Okay.
Like our brains use these existing stories to try and make sense of really anomalous things, maybe including potential ET encounters. The idea is that some sightings, perhaps of craft or beings, might get misidentified or woven into folklore over time.
And strange animal behavior, too.
Yes. The document notes reports of animals acting weirdly in the region, people seeing them agitated, erratic, sometimes freezing up, gathering in odd ways, or even disappearing around the time of strange lights or sounds. And these reports are noted as being pretty consistent over decades.
And there's a proposed link connecting animal behavior, local art symbols, and geography. That's complicated.
It is, and it's a theory presented in the source. Some researchers suggest that symbols in local art, sometimes shapes that look a bit like UFOs or geometric forms, might actually encode knowledge about these mysteries.
Hidden meanings.
Perhaps, or reflect deep, maybe ancestral awareness. And locations near certain geological features, like ridges or formations, are theorized to maybe have unique energy properties or EM disturbances.
Infecting animals.
Possibly influencing animal behavior, yeah. And maybe connected to the phenomena themselves. The idea is that the symbols, the animal stuff, the specific locations, maybe they all point to a bigger interconnected pattern of weirdness in the region.
Okay, let's loop back to the big question. Why? What was the purpose?
Yeah.
The source says many people strongly believe it was meant to communicate something important.
Yeah, regardless of who made it, there's this feeling it wasn't just random scribbling. Many think it was intended as a message, somehow.
To who?
Well, the source covers different ideas, maybe connecting to ancient cultures, a comment on the vast landscape, or a message aimed at extraterrestrials,
Obviously.
is one theory mentioned. Or maybe it's part of a coded language designed with that huge scale and specific location to be seen from way up satellites, aircraft.
The source mentions Marree Man as a cosmic antenna or receiver. That's a big leap.
It is pretty speculative, yeah, but the source includes it. The idea that the figure's design might somehow interact with or receive EP signals. Proponents might suggest UFO sightings link up with cosmic alignments or peaks in EM activity, making contact more likely. The location itself seen as maybe a physical node in some communication network.
But what about more down-to-earth human reasons?
Oh yeah, the source lists plenty of those too. Could just be to make people curious, ask questions about human creativity on a massive scale.
Provoke thought.
Exactly. Or maybe geopolitical commentary, social statement, symbol of identity, even huge advertising, a political protest, part of a ritual, a navigational marker for planes.
Lots of possibilities.
Loads. But the source is clear. There's no firm evidence supporting any single one of these intentions, which naturally keeps the mystery burning.
It's obvious that media and technology have played a massive part in this whole story, both in spreading the mystery and trying to solve it.
Absolutely. Media coverage evolved hugely from those first local reports to intense global fascination. Documentaries followed, some super speculative, others more scientific.
Right.
And importantly, that increased access to satellite images, better aerial photos in the early 2000s, that was a total game changer. Spread globally, fueled speculation like crazy.
And social media must have amplified that even more.
Massively. Instant sharing of pictures, theories, it created this global community around the mystery.
Crowdsourcing data.
Yeah, people sharing photos, videos, their own accounts from the area. Collaborative online investigations, real-time updates became possible, but the source also flags the downside.
Misinformation.
Big time. Misinformation and hoaxes spread just as fast, if not faster. It's a major challenge.
And modern tech is being used directly in the investigation now, right?
Definitely. Everyone's got a smartphone. Yeah. So documenting potential sightings or details is easy now, high quality.
Drones, too.
Drones are huge. Amazing aerial views, getting into hard-to-reach spots for close-ups, satellites for large-scale monitoring, maybe even detecting EM anomalies.
Wow.
AI, machine learning, they're being used more to sift through all that data, look for patterns humans might miss. Digital reconstructions can make 3D models of the site.
So tech has kind of democratized the investigation.
In a way, yeah. The source points out how it's made recording easier for everyone, and virtual exploration is possible for almost anyone now.
Now, just to give Marree Man some wider context, the source touches on the whole ancient alien theory landscape.
Yeah, it briefly places Marree Man within that broader discussion. The idea that ancient symbols, artwork around the world might be clues left by ET visitors in the past.
Like what examples?
The source mentions things like complex carvings, figures that some people think look like astronauts or spacecraft, Nazca lines again, but also stuff from Egyptian, Mesopotamian, Central American cultures, star charts, weird devices, figures with alien features.
And these symbols are seen as codes.
Within that framework, yes. Hidden codes or records of cosmic knowledge passed down.
And Marree Man gets compared to these sites in that context.
It does, for its geometric precision, the huge scale, the mysterious design, and the idea it could be a message or a navigation marker, like maybe Nazca.
Fits the pattern.
That's the ancient alien pattern, yeah. Alignments with stars is another theory sometimes applied. These symbols may be, including Marree Man, potentially being a language for ETs, but the source notes this is highly debated.
Pareidolia.
Yeah.
Seeing patterns.
Exactly. Our brains love finding familiar shapes, faces, figures, even in random data. That's a huge factor in these interpretations.
Right. Which brings us to skepticism. Whenever you talk about mysteries like this, especially with ET theories, critical thinking is absolutely vital.
Couldn't agree more. The skeptical viewpoint is crucial. It highlights the consistent lack of hard, verifiable scientific evidence for most UFO or alien claims.
Eyewitness accounts aren't enough.
Often not reliable on their own. Sightings can be poor quality, accounts inconsistent, influenced by bias, memory tricks, psychological factors. Skeptics argue many reports are just misidentified natural things, weird clouds, meteors, or human stuff like planes, satellites, drones.
And the arguments for Marree Man being human-made.
Skeptics come back to the physical evidence we do have, or can infer, the precision, signs of construction methods, even if tool marks are hard to find there, the sheer plausibility of it being planned, the resources being available.
So land, art, or a hoax is more likely.
From a skeptical viewpoint, yes. Presented as far more probable explanations than anything paranormal or extraterrestrial.
So the source really pushes for critical evaluation.
Absolutely. It stresses relying on multiple independent sources, looking for evidence you can actually verify objectively, scrutinizing who's making the claim, where it comes from, considering the historical context.
Distinguishing good evidence from just speculation.
Exactly. And being wary of misinformation. Skepticism here isn't about just saying no to everything. It's about demanding solid proof for extraordinary claims.
Finding a balance seems key then.
Precisely. The source advocates for being open-minded, willing to consider unusual possibilities, but combining that with caution and rigorous methods.
Like what?
Careful documentation, cross-checking data, always considering the mundane explanations first before jumping to mysterious ones.
Okay, so we've gone through the science, the art, the wild theories, the skepticism.
Wow.
Where does that leave us with the Marree Man? What are the big unanswered questions, and what's next?
Well, the core questions are still right there, aren't they? Who actually made it? Why did they make it? And is there any real connection to all those reports of strange aerial phenomena nearby? Or is that just a fascinating coincidence because it's so remote?
Those questions keep the whole thing alive.
Absolutely. They continue to fuel fascination and debate.
And what about future research? Any directions mentioned?
The source points to technology, mainly. Continued use of advanced tech better sensors, smarter AI to analyze data, improved satellite and drone imaging for closer looks. Interdisciplinary work is also key, getting scientists, archaeologists, anthropologists, cultural experts talking to each other, pooling knowledge.
Makes sense.
And just continuing to carefully analyze the evidence we already have Maybe new insights are still waiting there. Plus, there could always be new artistic or cultural takes on the figure as time goes on.
And involving local communities. Still important.
Hugely important, the source emphasizes. Community involvement, cultural dialogue, especially with the indigenous communities on whose land this figure lies. Respecting protocols, sensitive engagement that's presented as vital for preserving its significance and understanding its place.
It really sounds like, despite all the digging, some basic questions about the Marree Man might just stay unanswered.
The source definitely acknowledges that possibility. Some aspects might remain mysteries. But, it concludes, the search itself, exploring the possibilities, that has value.
A case study in curiosity.
Exactly. A powerful case study in human curiosity, our drive to find meaning in things we don't understand, and just the enduring power of a mystery etched into the land.
So yeah, the Marree Man sits right at this amazing crossroads. Land art, science puzzle, historical weirdness, local folklore, and that universal search for the unknown. Even with strong arguments for human creation, its origins, its purpose, still officially unknown, leaves plenty of room for fascination, for exploration.
It truly does. It really challenges us, makes us look at the world around us differently, question what might be hidden right there in front of us, or above us.
And that leads perfectly into our final thought for you, the listener, to maybe mull over. It pulls together this mix of human creation and cosmic mystery the sources hint at. Could it be that the Marree Man's real importance, its true purpose, isn't about finding out who made it or why, but maybe it lies in its lasting power, to make us looking up at the sky, looking at that vast landscape, maybe looking inside ourselves, ask those really big questions. Questions about intention, about connection, about the unknown, questions we might otherwise never even think to ask.